Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so happy that you are here, and I am so happy to be here. Today, I'm going to be filming my July wrap-up, and July was a very interesting reading month for me, which is kind of fun. I ended up reading so many books at the beginning of the month, and then reading absolutely nothing at the end of the month. I just got back from vacation, which is so much fun, but I didn't end up doing a lot of reading on vacation. And I was pondering this video while I was away. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to film a July reading wrap up because I haven't really read anything. I had no recollection of the books that I had read. And then I referred to my Goodreads and I've actually read 9. And frankly, I think it's a little bit horrifying the fact that I did not remember reading 9 books, nor have any of the books really stuck with me. And I think that that is the perfect explanation to my reading year so far. I have read a lot of books. I'm at 41 books, yet none of them have really stuck with me, or none of them I have thought about again. I'd say maybe the only one that has is Funny Story by Emily Henry, but that one's been more forgettable than I thought it would be. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we're going to be talking about the books that I read in the month of July. So of the 9 books I read, 8 were audio and 1 was on my Kindle, and we're just going to hop right into the books. The first book that I read was Well Traveled by Jen DeLuca, and this was actually a book that I thought was a little bit funny because I had owned the first one in this series. I bought it on like Book Outlet, but then I put it in a little free library and never read it, and then I hopped into this book, which was like I think like the 3rd or 4th in this series, but they're all interconnected standalones. This book is about a lawyer and she needs an escape from her corporate life. She's just not enjoying her time being a corporate lawyer. She's being underappreciated, and she ends up at a Renaissance fair because one of her cousins is in a Renaissance fair, and she's like, I'm traveling, let me go to a Renaissance fair. And she ends up meeting a guitarist, and one thing leads to another, and she ends up quitting her job as a lawyer and joining the Renaissance fair for the summer. And so we follow her adventure through making new friends, finding new spaces for herself to be, and just like refinding her happiness almost. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I thought it was cute and I liked some of the aspects that occurred. I will say the thing that really held this book back for me personally was that I didn't connect with the main male character, Dex. I just found him to be just not the book boyfriend that I want. I don't know, the way he was introduced was very playboy, and throughout the entire book he is very like flirty and like playboy-esque in his manner and vibe, I guess. And that personally just isn't my biggest fan when it comes to MMCs. I like someone who's more like obsessed with the female main character, or who in general is just not have a reputation of flirting and sleeping with everyone. I don't know. That was kind of something that kind of held me back a bit in the book. I would also say that this book was quite repetitive in our main character, Louisa or Lulu's point of view and like her dialogue. I'm rechecking my Goodreads notes, which are over here, and I ended up giving it 3 stars on Goodreads, but rating it 2.75. So I do have to correct myself on that. I think overall it was just an average read, and one that I have not and probably will not think about again. The next book that I ended up reading was really exciting for me because I feel like I've seen this author all over Book Talk, and typically they're not in a genre that I read. But I ended up reading my first Frida McFadden book, and I ended up reading Never Lie. This book was quite a bit of fun. I read it on audio. I read it so fast, and it was really, really engaging. But I ended up giving this book 3 stars, and it's about newlyweds Trisha and Ethan, and they are looking to buy their first home. So they end up driving up to this big mansion that's in the middle of nowhere, and they get caught in a snowstorm and snowed into this mansion. So what ends up happening is the two explore this mansion and they start uncovering things about the owner who lived here. The story takes place with Trisha and Ethan in the present, uncovering the mansion, having creepy things happen. And then it also follows the previous owner of the mansion, who is a therapist who was brutally murdered, and they don't know where she is. They don't know what happened to her. So the story flip-flops between those 2 perspectives, and I found it to be very interesting. I will say that I was looking in the complete wrong direction, and I don't want to give any spoilers or get too far into it, but I do feel that even though I was looking in the wrong place, when the right place and the reveals happened, I do feel like there were some plot holes that I just can't quite get over a little bit. So that's why I ended up with 3 stars. I feel like if there were less plot holes in the sense of like the reveals made a little bit more sense in their like history or explanations, then I would have been a 4, but for those reasons it's a 3. The next book that I ended up reading was Broken Vow by Sophie Lark. Now this was a book that I had really high expectations for because it was exactly what I wanted to read in the moment. I wanted a light mafia, I wanted a kind of suspenseful book because there is slight murder attempts happening, but we'll get into that when I talk about the plot of the book. And I just wanted something fun and easy and light with like mystery almost aspects, I guess, because like the murder plot, suspense, shall we say. I really thought it was going to hit all those marks, and I started reading it. I thought it was going to hit all those marks, and then it just took the weirdest turn. Now, I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum, and if you enjoy this in books, 100% I'm so happy for you and I'm so proud of you. Like, That's amazing. However, this book just didn't work for me. You can also tell that this was the book I read on Kindle because I am not sure how to say these names. And I honestly, the letters were fighting in my head. So Riona is a part of the Griffin's family. This is the 5th book in the Brutal Birthright series, which is like a bunch of interconnected standalones. But I just really wanted to read this one because it was giving like small town meets mafia. I was like, yes, here we go. Anyway, Riona is a Griffin and she is kind of part of the mafia side of like the corporate end of it. She's like more in charge of like land holdings and money. She's working in the office. She's a girl boss. And she ends up having a murder attempt on her. And the family doesn't know who. The family doesn't know why. And the family is so confused. Enter our love interest.
Rylan.
I'm going to say his name, Rylan. It's not how you say it. I'm omitting a vowel, but it's the only way that makes sense coming out of my mouth, so I'm so sorry. He is then hired by the family to be her bodyguard and shadow her everywhere. The thing is, with this book, I just found the writing to be super, super choppy. And there were also expressions that occurred in this book that were kind of strange, didn't really feel like they needed to be written the way that they were. Felt kind of weird, like I feel like other words could have been used. One of them was that when someone wasn't understanding what they were saying, they said it sounded like they were speaking Chinese. And I was like, this is kind of strange. I feel like they were speaking a different language would have been just as adequate. And then there was another line where they were talking about like smelly fish in Shanghai. And I was like, I feel like this is also very weirdly and out of place. And you're using like this culture's food as almost an insult. So I really didn't enjoy that. And that was kind of before other things that I'll get into happened. The main thing that I didn't like in this book, the main thing that really just got me aside from those weird lines was the spice. And again, not here to yuck your yum, but if I hear the word primal or animalistic one more time, I think I might lose it. I think I might lose my mind. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. The spice in this book made me uncomfortable. It was awkward. It was not hot at all. And even one of the moments was like, I'm going to do some things, but like, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do. And like, I feel like in some ways this could be written very like attractively and like could be like fun and mysterious, but this one just felt really awkward and I did not enjoy it. The only thing that kept me going in this book was this impending murder hit on Riona's head. Like, I genuinely, that was why I kept going. And I ended up finishing it and calling the main twists. So, really, this book just didn't work for me, and that's okay. But I'm disappointed because it started out good. Was the writing choppy at the beginning? Yes. But was it everything that I wanted at the moment? Small town, slightly mafia, funness? Yes. I feel like I've yapped about that book for so long because I genuinely have so many things to say. And so if that's the longest section of this video, I do apologize because it is me just like hating on the book. I then moved on to something that I knew would give me good vibes because I read the first book in this interconnected standalone series and really enjoyed it on audio. So I then again picked this sequel up, and that is Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver. Now, this book was a lot of fun. I will say I did enjoy it, but I will also say that this book definitely took me a little bit of a time to get into. I feel like the beginning just didn't have the same Butcher and Blackbird feel where it immediately like tossed you into these characters and you were like immediately engrossed. I felt like this one was like a bit of a slower burn where you're like listening to it or reading it and just kind of like curious about what's going on but not immediately enthralled. And then once like the tension started building and things started happening, then I was here, then I was engaged, and I really enjoyed it. The one thing that I found really entertaining was that Lark refused to use any other term other than multiple deleter. And I don't know, the audiobook was just so good. Just like the narration and like the humor that they put into the words, it is so good. These books definitely read your trigger warnings because they're a little wild, but I thought that this one was a little bit less unhinged than the other books. Like I felt like the gruesome, gory details were really less than the first book in the series, which I have no complaints about. It still had that Brynne Weaver, like, gory murder meets fun rom-com vibes, but like a little less gory. I'd say my biggest criticism with this book is that there is kind of this overhanging danger plot line that we get introduced to at the end of the first book. And I really feel like that plot line was picked up and then dropped, like it was hot and not picked up again for a really long time, and then picked up and then dropped again. I'll also say I thought it was a bit predictable, but I was really here for Lachlan and Lark and their relationship, specifically how much Lachlan cared about Lark and how aware he was of her emotions and what she might need, and reaching out to other people to be like, how can I best support her? I ended up landing on a 3.75 for this book because it was a bit slow to start. There were a few plot holes of plots being dropped, but I overall really enjoyed the relationship that they had. The next book that I ended up reading was my second Frida McFadden book, and it was Ward D. Now, this book, I originally landed on a 3, but I think I'm going to bump it down to a 2 because I wasn't really engaged in this book, and this book just didn't work for me personally. Like, I have learned, and I now know that psych ward settings are just not they're just not for me, and that's totally okay. So I think that this book definitely has a target audience, and I am not that target audience. This book was about our main character, Amy, and she is a medical student, and she gets a shift in Ward D, which is the psych ward, and she's going to be there for one night and one night only on this rotation. So we follow her night in the psych ward where crazy things are starting to happen, and you don't know what is going on. And then we also follow her from the past when she is with her friend Jade, and Jade has some troubles, and so we end up learning more about Amy and Jade in the past, and then Amy now in the future when she is in this psych ward. It didn't work for me, and I don't have much to say on this book simply because it wasn't my style. I didn't really enjoy it, but I think that it could be very well enjoyed by someone who is more into this plot, I guess. The next book that I read in the month of July was Viciously Yours, and this book again did not work for me. At this point, I was here for a romantasy. I was like, give me something fun, give me something fast. A mutual in my book talk ended up talking about this book and kind of yapping about it, and I was like, you know what? That sounds fast, that sounds easy, that sounds fun, I will pick it up. I think that this book has a target audience, and once again, it was not me. One of our main characters, Rennick, he is a fae, and at the age of 13, he gets the name of his soulmate, of his mate, whispered into his ear. Amelia is the human girl who is going to be Rennick's mate, but she doesn't know this because she's in the human lands. She doesn't understand what's going on. This book kind of takes place with Rennick writing letters to Amelia as they grow up, because Amelia is not able to come to the court that Rennick rules or will rule until she is 25. So it takes place with a bunch of letters, and then also when they end up meeting at 25, and the story kind of goes from there. My thing with this book is that I just felt uncomfortable at some of the things. Like, some of the letters that Rennick sent her were like alluding to activities that she did by herself, and I was like, sir, what is going on? Like, why are we writing this? And it just came down to the fact that this book is no plot, and it is just trying to be like an enemies to lovers fae smut saga, I guess. And that is totally okay, because the author's note at the very beginning said it's not a masterpiece. And I went into that being like, I know. I called every single plot twist. I was kind of uncomfortable with the letters that were being exchanged, or how he would kind of like sexualize things in some ways. And that just didn't work for me. I felt that there was a lot of repetition in this book, and I also felt that there were very, very quick changes and very, very weird pacing. Like, some moments would like drag out a little bit, and then in a split second it would be over, and you'd be like, wait, hold on, I thought we weren't doing that, or I thought this decision was made differently. And it was very, very strange. I think that if you're looking for something that has absolutely no plot and just very repetitive smut too, that wasn't very exciting, then this could definitely be something that could work for you. I just sound like the biggest hater, but I think it's because I'm remembering why I forgot all these books in July and how much they did not work for me. And this book, unfortunately, was one of them. But this one I actually read on my Kindle, so I've lied to you. I read...
Hello guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This month of July, I read 8 books, not 9, because I finished my 9th book on August 1st. And I actually read 2 on my Kindle, so I read 6 on audio and 2 on my Kindle. We're gonna get into July now.
I just feel that this video is an entirely different vibe than what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be so put together and so fun, and then I remembered as I'm doing this video, like actively while I'm doing this video, that there's a reason why I didn't remember all of the books that I read in the month of June or July. It's because I didn't like them. And we are going to talk about Ali Hazelwood's new novel, and I'm going to skim past this one so quickly because I physically cannot bring myself to talk about a book that I didn't entirely enjoy. Again, I can't do it. So this is Not in Love. I rated it 3 stars. I think that I really enjoyed the ending. The 60% mark onwards, I was here, I was engaged. But before that, I really struggled to connect with the story and to connect with the characters. I will say one thing that I really enjoyed about this book was Eli's character and how much he listened, cared, and respected for Rue. He saw her boundaries and like her like needs and or like quirks that she saw in herself, and he completely respected them and loved her with all of them. And I really, really enjoyed that. I liked learning the history between the 2 companies in this book, because this book is actually about our 2 main characters. The company that Rue works for ends up getting acquired by Eli and his friends, and we end up learning kind of the history behind why Eli started the company with his friends and a bit more about the owner of the company that Rue works for. And I found that to be very entertaining, and again, that kind of all unfolded at the end or the latter half of the book. It definitely feels a bit more different than an Ali Hazelwood book that I have read before, and I can't quite pinpoint what it was in the first 60% of the book that didn't have me entirely engaged, but at the end of the day, I did really enjoy the latter half and how much Eli cared for Rue and how he cared for her. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. The last book that I ended up reading in the month of July was also an audiobook, and that was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Now, I hope that you cannot tell my completely discouraged tone because I am so discouraged. We're gonna power through. So this book was the last book that I had to read of Emily Henry's. I read all of her other ones, and I just had this on kind of like my backlog because I'm not a friends to lovers girly. And unfortunately, I knew this book wasn't gonna be my cup of tea because of that. And I was right. I was right. I ended up giving it 3 stars, but there were aspects that I really enjoyed. I really loved the Canada cameo and the Vancouver Island cameo specifically of having these characters explore the island, and I really found that quite interesting and I really loved to see that. I will also say that I enjoyed the like jumping back and forth from past to present, but my main issue with this book was the fact that our main characters had feelings for each other in moments when they were with other people, or kind of had this kind of like looming what if. For me, that just didn't work for me. I felt really bad in the end for the partners of Alex and Poppy because they were best friends. So this book is about Alex and Poppy. They are best friends, and every summer they go on a vacation together because Poppy is a travel blogger, and they start off, I believe, going on these trips, the summer trip, before she gets hired at the magazine that she works for, because she does end up doing these trips and blog about them of how to do these amazing trips for very, very cheap. And then when she gets hired by the travel blogger that she works for, then she takes Alex along and they have more luxury trip. But on one of these trips, something happens and they're no longer in contact. So the book takes place while we're looking at the summer trips that happened in the past, and then on the final summer trip when they haven't spoken in 2 years and they have just reconnected. I don't have too much more to say on it. I listened to it on audio because I knew I wasn't probably going to physically read it. But the exciting news about this is that yesterday we actually ended up getting the cast of the 2 main leads for the People We Meet on Vacation movie. One of them is actually the lead in My Lady Jane, and I love her so much, so I'm so excited for that. But I would say the book, there were aspects that I enjoyed, there are aspects that I didn't. 3 stars is where I landed on that one. This video is not the peppiness that I wanted it to be. I feel like as you've watched it, if you're still here, you've just slowly seen my soul die and me get more discouraged by the books that I am talking about and how much I didn't like them. So that is unfortunate. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video where I'm hopefully a bit more put together. And yeah, bye everybody.